Hey guys, tonight we trudge onto a medieval ship, snow lashing sideways, boards groaning under frozen feet, and the wind so sharp it slices through even the thickest wool. Imagine standing at the bow as the sea churns in dark, icy waves, and you realize if you were here without centuries of nautical know-how, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. While you're at it, drop your location and local time in the comments. Let's see who's sharing this chilly ride with. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You press your hands against the rough timbers, feeling their cold seep-through gloves that feel more ornamental than practical. Around you, sailors pull heavy ropes, their faces ghostly pale under fur-lined hoods. Some have wrapped scarves around their mouths, leaving only frost-bitten eyes peering out, while others argue quietly over the best way to keep feet from turning into blocks of ice. The smell of tar, seaweed, and wet wool mingles, and you're instantly aware that warmth is as much a luxury as clean water. Historians still argue whether these crews relied more on layered clothing or sheer stubbornness to survive long northern passages. A faint glow flickers from a small cabin fire, struggling to breathe in the biting air. You notice that some sailors cluster around each other, huddling in pairs or threes, because shared body heat can be surprisingly effective. And yes, there's a fringe belief that keeping a cat or dog close might have doubled as a makeshift radiator. The deck heaves underfoot. Icy spray soaks your outer layers, and you quickly realize that even movement doesn't guarantee warmth. Wind whistles through rigging like a chorus of tiny banshees, and your imagination supplies the rest. Frost creeping up sleeves, fingers stiffening, toes numb and unfeeling. Even the simplest tasks, tying a knot, hauling a sail, checking the rigging, become exercises in survival. You wonder how anyone slept through nights that dropped well below freezing, and you glimpse men and women trading brief jokes about the cold that you're sure would have felt cruel if you were awake long enough to laugh. Remember that crocodile dung sunscreen story? Yeah, sailors had their own odd rituals. Some smeared a mixture of animal fat and herbs to prevent skin cracking. It looks silly to modern eyes, but desperate times breed inventive methods, and some even claim it actually helped retain a fraction of warmth. The night stretches, and you trudge past the foremast, past a row of bundled figures dozing while clutching small metal flasks of warm broth. Even in these frozen moments, life hums with ingenuity. Careful balance, whispered instructions, a tilt of a head to avoid icicles. You feel that if you survive this first glimpse, there's hope for the rest of the voyage.
You shake off the icy spray clinging to your hood and notice how every layer of clothing matters. Nothing is arbitrary here. Beneath heavy wool cloaks and linen tunics, sailors wore tightly wrapped undergarments, sometimes stitched with patches of fur or even down. You probably wouldn't survive a long voyage with only one thin tunic and wet stockings. And here, it's not about fashion. It's life or frostbite. Historians still argue whether the typical sailor's wardrobe truly kept them from hypothermia, or if sheer endurance was the real shield. You tug at your sleeves and feel the friction of multiple fabrics, linen against wool, wool against fur, and realize the combination is deliberate, trapping pockets of insulating air while letting sweat escape. You notice one sailor fumbling with a scarf that's almost comically long, wrapping it repeatedly around his neck and face. Fringe sources claim some crews even lined tunics with unconventional materials, feathers, moss, or finely shredded wool from other ships as an emergency insulator. You try not to imagine the smell, but desperate times make for creative solutions. Every movement generates friction, but if layers are too tight, circulation suffers, and frostbite spreads faster than rumor. Gloves are a constant negotiation between dexterity and warmth. Sailors sometimes wore double-layered mittens, sacrificing nimbleness to keep fingers alive long enough to haul lines. Oddly, some even kept their gloves slightly damp before a voyage to train hands against cold, a practice that seems absurd now, but supposedly built resilience. You pull your own gloves tighter and feel the chill working its way past the seams, reminding you that even the most thoughtful layering can only do so much. Boots are another battlefield. Thick leather, often stuffed with straw or fur, provides insulation, but when wet, they become icy prisons. The fringe notion that sailors filled shoes with hay from stables is probably exaggerated, yet a hint of practicality is buried in it. Any insulating material was better than nothing. You notice a man kicking off a frozen patch of straw, grimacing, and you realize that maintaining warmth was as much about managing what you wore as how you moved. And hats, don't forget the hats. Woolen caps, sometimes lined with fur, could mean the difference between a usable brain and frost-numb confusion. A fringe idea claims that tying small cloth pouches filled with dried herbs to the crown of a cap added mental clarity in extreme cold. It's unclear whether it worked, but sailors swore by rituals. However quirky, you can almost hear the whispered bets of sailors on whose layering combo will hold out the longest, a game of survival, ingenuity, and superstition all rolled together.
You shuffle across the deck, feeling the boards creak beneath your boots, and realize the ship itself is part of your survival strategy. The hull, massive and wooden, acts like a slow oven, absorbing sunlight during the day and holding residual heat through the night. Some captains went a step further, enclosing tiny cabins or windbreaks where sailors could escape the worst blasts. Historians still argue whether these micro-warmth zones were standard on all northern voyages or just a privilege of wealthier ships. You peek into one cabin, smelling the faint tang of tar, damp wood, and residual smoke, and imagine how a few degrees of warmth could feel like heaven compared to the deck. There's a quirky twist. Some ships burned tar-soaked rags in small iron containers to generate extra heat. You'd think it would be more fire hazard than comfort, but careful sailors swore by the technique, balancing proximity to avoid burns while stealing a few precious moments of warmth. The smell is pungent, almost medicinal, and it mingles with the briny spray hitting the hull, creating an oddly human aroma, equal parts survival and endurance. You remember seeing similar improvised heat tricks in fringe sources, including burning animal fats or leftover oils, which you can only hope didn't set the sails aflame. Moving along, you notice the hull isn't just a passive wall. Its shape and design help mitigate cold exposure. Rounded timbers and double-planked sections trap air and reduce direct drafts, while narrow openings in deck structures prevent wind from ripping straight through the ship. You can almost feel the physics working. Each knot of wood, each overlapping seam, is a tiny buffer against hypothermia. Historians still debate how much of this design was intentional versus just evolved from centuries of trial and error. Looking down, you spot tiny cracks in the planking, sealed with pitch and moss, a classic medieval insulation hack. Some sailors believed rubbing animal fat into these cracks offered magical protection against cold, which, while likely ineffective, shows the blend of practical ingenuity and superstition. You trace the pitch with your fingers, appreciating the labor-intensive work that kept water and ice at bay. Fringe accounts even describe sailors adding powdered herbs into the mix, claiming it released a warming scent when heated by the sun. By the mast, you pause to examine the interplay of wood and movement. The deck creaks with every wave, the hull flexes, and somehow these natural vibrations circulate warmth subtly. You realize that every aspect of shipbuilding, from timber selection to cabin placement, was a survival tactic. It's engineering that doubles as therapy against the cold, a reminder that medieval sailors weren't just drifting at the mercy of the sea. They were improvising, experimenting, and quietly laughing at the absurdity of trying to stay warm on a floating block of ice. You step closer to the cabin doorway, and the first thing that hits you is the flickering glow of a small fire, barely enough to light a corner, but infinitely better than nothing. Fire management at sea is a delicate art. One careless spark could turn timber into kindling, yet controlled flames offer precious heat. Sailors developed techniques for keeping fires alive on rocking decks. Iron containers, suspended hearths, and strategically placed stones to prevent rolling. Historians still argue about how widespread these methods truly were. Some accounts make them seem universal, others rare and reserved for captains who enjoyed a little extra risk. Fringe tales suggest some sailors burned aromatic herbs to produce not just heat, but calming smoke,
a medieval version of aromatherapy, if you will. The smell is faintly medicinal, oddly comforting amid the cold and salt spray. You watch a sailor tilt a small brazier slightly to prevent the flames from licking the ceiling, while another carefully adds a pinch of pine resin to intensify the heat. It's a tightrope walk between warmth and disaster, yet somehow it works. You can almost feel the tension in the crew as they rotate, tending the fire. Knowing a lapse could cost more than comfort, it could mean disaster. Smoke rises through tiny vents, carrying warmth into adjacent cabins. You notice how sailors position themselves in semicircles around these micro-hearths, sharing heat while remaining mindful of danger. Oddly, some crews reportedly used discarded sails or wool scraps to reflect heat back toward the occupants, a clever improvisation that borders on the ridiculous yet is strangely effective. You lean in, feeling the warmth tickle your fingertips, and appreciate the subtle choreography required to survive long nights. While fires provide direct heat, they also serve a psychological purpose. The crackle and glow create a sense of safety, a small rebellion against the indifferent cold outside. You see sailors quietly chatting, swapping jokes, and sharing morsels of hot food, a scene that could almost be cozy if it weren't for the wind screaming through the portholes. Historians still debate whether fire management truly influenced survival rates or was more of a morale booster, yet the blend of practicality and ritual can't be ignored. By the stern, a sailor demonstrates a fringe technique, a small pan of water set over coals, releasing steam that temporarily humidifies the cabin, making frostbite less likely on exposed skin. It smells faintly of wet wool, not unpleasant once you adjust, and underscores the improvisational genius of these crews. You step back, realizing that every fire, every ember is a lifeline in the frozen expanse, a testament to human adaptability in the face of relentless cold.
You trudge past the flickering cabin fires and notice the sleeping arrangements, if you can even call them that. Hammocks swing slightly, stuffed with straw, wool, or even old sails, and each sailor has perfected a system of layering to trap as much heat as possible. You lie down on one, immediately aware that staying still is dangerous. Your body temperature drops faster than you expect. Historians still puzzle over whether these arrangements were consistently effective or if survival relied more on sheer luck and stubbornness. You pull an extra blanket from a crate and wrap it around yourself, realizing that small innovations, folding clothes under your torso, tucking feet into a fur-lined sack, made a real difference. Some fringe accounts suggest sailors occasionally slept with animals, cats, dogs, or even pigs, clamoring close to share body heat. It sounds ridiculous, but in the desperate chill, any warmth is welcome. You hear a quiet snore nearby and a soft rustle. Perhaps it's a dog, or maybe it's just a sailor shivering against the cold. The point is clear. Survival often meant improvising beyond conventional norms, and superstition mingled seamlessly with practicality. You notice how the sleeping positions themselves are carefully considered, feet pointing windward, heads near enclosed walls, bodies curled into tight fetal shapes. Everything is optimized for conserving warmth. Oddly, sailors sometimes placed small clay or metal containers filled with heated stones under blankets to mimic a bed warmer, a technique that historians still debate regarding its historical accuracy. You imagine the gentle weight of heat pressing against your back and the faint hum of creaking timbers as the ship rocks. Even amid extreme cold, camaraderie persists. Whispered jokes, the occasional quiet laughter, and subtle nudges ensure that morale doesn't collapse under hypothermia's invisible pressure. You recall earlier stories of animal fat skin rubs or pine resin fires. Now they seem connected, part of a larger system where warmth isn't just physical, it's mental, ritualistic, and social. The ship becomes a living organism, each movement, each breath contributing to collective survival. Finally, as you settle into your improvised nest of blankets and straw, you realize the ingenuity required for these frozen nights is staggering. Every tactile decision, how to fold a tunic, where to position a foot, when to rotate positions, matters. The chill outside is relentless,
yet you feel a fragile, comforting warmth that reminds you of human resilience, cleverness, and the small, persistent hope that another sunrise will come.
You sit up and watch as the cook ladles steaming stew into small wooden bowls, the aroma instantly cutting through the cold. Food here isn't just fuel, it's a weapon against the chill. Hot liquids raise core temperature, provide comfort, and, surprisingly, influence morale. Some sailors carried spices like pepper or ginger, which warmed the stomach and supposedly the body from within. Historians still debate how widespread this practice was. Was it a luxury or a necessity for survival in northern water? You wrap your hands around the bowl, feeling the heat seep through your gloves, and savor the brief reprieve from the icy bite of the deck. Fringe stories suggest that sailors sometimes indulged in hot chocolate, a mixture of roasted cocoa, milk, and a hint of honey. Far from the modern version, but enough to offer temporary warmth and energy. You wonder if this was common or just a fanciful tale that made it into logs and letters because people wanted to believe in small comforts. Either way, the principle is clear. Warmth often came in a cup, not just a coat. Alcohol also plays a tricky role. A swig of ale or mead is common, and it does make you feel warmer, though the heat is superficial. The folklore about drinking to stave off frostbite persists in accounts, and historians still argue whether this was actually beneficial or merely a psychological crutch. You watch a sailor tip a horn of ale, wincing at the burn, then smile as the glow spreads through his cheeks. It's a momentary victory against the cold, a human trick to feel warmth when physics disagrees. The cooking fire itself has dual purposes: nourishment and heat. You notice a small group of sailors huddled near the cauldron, sharing stories, passing bowls, and rotating positions to maximize exposure to warmth. Fringe reports suggest that some ships added dried herbs or peppercorns to soups specifically for their warming magic. Scientifically dubious, yet psychologically potent. You can almost feel the synergy: food, fire, and social interaction converging to keep core temperatures stable. Finally, you realize that eating is more than just survival. It's ritual. The way sailors plan meals, share portions, and savor every spoonful creates rhythm in an otherwise chaotic frozen environment. Every bite becomes a deliberate act of resistance against the cold, and every shared laugh or joke a reinforcement of the human spirit. Even in the bleakest nights, the heat of a meal becomes a small anchor, holding you steady while the storm rages outside. You trudge across the slippery deck, water seeping into boots despite multiple layers, and quickly realize moisture is your enemy number one. Wet clothes conduct cold at alarming rates, and a single spray from a breaking wave can mean frostbite within minutes. Historians still debate whether medieval sailors had systematic ways to stay dry, or if they mostly relied on luck and constant vigilance. You kick at a frozen puddle and feel the cold creep up your leg, a sharp reminder that survival is never passive. It's constant action, awareness, and improvisation. A fringe tale catches your attention. Some sailors supposedly rubbed snow directly onto their hands to toughen them before long shifts at the helm. It sounds absurd, even cruel, but in a twisted way, the practice hints at early attempts to train the body against exposure. You might wince imagining it, but the logic is clear. If you know cold is unavoidable, better to condition than complain. You glance at a pair of sailors, their hands red and stiff, silently judging who will endure longer in the icy spray. Waterproofing techniques are rudimentary but essential. Animal fats, tar, and pitch are smeared over boots and gloves, creating a thin barrier against the relentless moisture. Fringe sources even claim some crews stuffed seaweed or moss into boots to soak up water, a crude but surprisingly effective insulation. You run a hand over your own soaked glove and shiver, realizing that ingenuity is as much a survival tool as courage. Even routine tasks become treacherous. Handling lines, adjusting sails, or carrying buckets of water requires delicate balance. Wet surfaces and stiffened fingers multiply the risk of injury or frostbite. The wind slices through layers like a knife, making every wet spot a reminder that the ocean is indifferent. Historians still argue whether strict protocols existed for rotating wet and dry tasks, or if crews simply survived through instinct and brute stubbornness. You notice rituals and small tricks.
Some sailors hang wet clothing near fires overnight, while others wrap damp mittens inside fur linings to dry them slowly. The combination of practical knowledge and quirky, almost magical thinking, like smearing a bit of grease or snow-toughened leather, creates a complex survival ecosystem. You pause to admire this ingenuity. The struggle against moisture isn't just about warmth, it's about adaptation, ritual, and the subtle art of staying alive on a frozen, rocking ship.
You grip the helm, knuckles white against the frozen wood, and feel the full force of the wind slamming into your face. Long hours at the wheel are brutal. Exposed to both biting gusts and icy spray, sailors had to master endurance as much as navigation. Historians still argue whether structured rotation schedules existed to protect against frostbite, or if crews simply endured until exhaustion forced a change. You shift your weight, trying to keep circulation going, noticing the numb tingle creeping into your fingers despite multiple layers of gloves and mittens. Some fringe accounts suggest rotating positions with a partner wasn't only practical, it was a psychological tactic, creating competition to see who could withstand the cold the longest. You watch a pair of sailors laughing through chattering teeth, hands clasped over the wheel in alternating bursts, a tiny battle of stamina and bravado. There's something reassuring in human ritual, even in extreme conditions, a reminder that warmth comes not only from fire and clothing, but from shared struggle. The wind isn't uniform. It bites in waves, gusting unpredictably around sails and rigging. Clever crews learn to angle themselves and the wheel to reduce exposure, a skill combining physics and survival instinct. Fringe sources mention that some sailors even wore leather face masks, stiffened with pitch, to block the worst of the wind. A bizarre and slightly terrifying fashion, but undeniably practical. You pull your scarf tighter and feel your cheeks pinch, grateful for any layer that reduces the wind's bite. Balancing the helm while staying warm requires constant micro-adjustments, shifting feet, clenching hands, leaning into gusts. A single misstep could mean sliding across icy planks or losing grip on crucial lines. Historians still debate how formalized these techniques were across northern fleets. Did captains issue strict protocols, or was it all passed down through whispered instruction and personal experience? You notice subtle differences in stance, hand placement, and rotation among the sailors, each developed through trial, error, and a stubborn will to survive. By now, your body adapts slightly to the rhythm of exposure and brief respite. The wind feels less like an enemy and more like a challenge, and you start to understand the delicate balance between endurance, clothing, and movement. Mental focus, learned positioning, and small practiced rituals, tightening a glove, leaning slightly, shifting a boot, combined to stave off the worst of the cold. You realize that navigation isn't just about compass or stars, it's about survival, a dance with the elements where every decision has tangible consequences.
You crouch near the bow and notice how the ice gathers along the hull, glinting in the faint moonlight like jagged glass. Medieval sailors faced the constant threat of ice damage, and protecting the ship became a survival exercise. Pitch, sawdust, and even animal fat were applied to wooden surfaces to slow ice buildup, a messy but effective strategy. Historians still argue whether these techniques were standardized or improvised depending on the captain's experience. You rub a finger over a patch of hardened pitch, feeling its sticky resilience, and marvel at the ingenuity packed into such simple materials. A fringe belief claims that some crews etched magical runes on the hull or decks to ward off ice damage and bad luck. You can't help but chuckle at the image of superstitious sailors praying to carvings while hauling frozen lines. Yet there's something reassuring and ritual when confronted by nature's indifference. Even if ineffective physically, the act of ritual added a psychological layer of warmth. Confidence against fear often translates to steadier hands and faster reflexes in freezing conditions. The application process itself is laborious. Sailors smear fat over the hull during brief windows of calm, occasionally sprinkling sawdust or moss to fill cracks. You imagine the smell, a mixture of pungent grease and resinous pitch, and how it would cling to hands and clothes for days. The subtle friction from rubbing these substances also generates a minor, fleeting warmth, a bonus in the otherwise relentless cold. You notice some sailors taking turns, sharing the effort, quietly swapping small jokes about enchanted hulls, as if humor could literally repel the ice. Ice doesn't just coat the hull, it forms on ropes and rigging, threatening the sails and lines. Crews scrape and chip, often using improvised tools, balancing on slippery decks while the wind pushes them off kilter. Historians still debate how much formal training existed versus purely experiential knowledge, yet the careful choreography is obvious. Timing, rotation, and shared effort are key. Fringe sources even claim some sailors rubbed certain herbs into ropes for slipperiness or protection, a bizarre mixture of superstition and practical trial. As you step back and survey the partially cleared deck, you realize that survival isn't just about enduring the cold, it's about shaping your environment, manipulating the ship's surfaces, and maintaining morale while doing grueling physical labor. Every patch of pitch, every dash of sawdust is both protection and a tiny act of resistance against the freezing sea. You feel a small, hard-earned satisfaction. Here, in these rituals of work and belief, the line between survival and peril blurs, and human ingenuity asserts itself in the face of relentless ice.
You grip a taut rope, teeth chattering as the wind tears through the sails, and realize controlling them is more than a physical challenge. It's a battle against the cold itself. Sail manipulation, adjusting for both speed and direction, often exposes you fully to icy gusts, and the strain in your shoulders and fingers reminds you why sailors layered endlessly. Historians still argue whether certain sail configurations were specifically designed to minimize chilling wind exposure, or were just byproducts of other navigational priorities. You tug, brace, and feel the frosty sting on exposed skin, learning quickly that every knot and angle can change your comfort or survival. Fringe accounts suggest that some crews deliberately kept smaller sails deployed during blizzards to reduce wind flow over the deck, creating localized calm. You can almost hear the debate among sailors. "It'll save our fingers," while a captain balances efficiency and safety. It seems absurd, maybe even impractical, but in extreme conditions, every small reduction of wind matters. You pause to admire the subtle genius, how the interaction of cloth, timber, and human effort can slightly bend nature's cruelty. Handling lines while standing on a slick, pitching deck is a choreography of endurance. One slip and you risk plunging into the freezing water or twisting an already stiff limb. Fringe sources mention that some sailors coated ropes with animal fat to reduce ice buildup and increase grip. Whether universally practiced or only a quirky habit on certain ships, it illustrates the endless improvisation sailors employed to stay functional in the cold. You tug a line yourself, feeling the slick resistance, and realize how much of survival relies on anticipating every gust and planning every movement. The sails themselves act as both shields and hazards. Properly angled, they can block wind, funnel warmth toward the deck, or reduce exposure for nearby crew. Mismanaged, they whip back, creating brutal wind tunnels that chill even the most layered sailor. Historians still debate how much formal instruction existed for sail positioning in icy conditions, but the evidence of repeated trial and error is everywhere. Frayed ropes, patched sails, and careful observational skills. Finally, you notice the mental aspect. Controlling the sails requires focus, timing, and anticipation. Physical endurance matters, but so does concentration, humor, and camaraderie to break monotony. You watch sailors call out instructions, trade small jokes, and adjust positions almost instinctively. The cold becomes not just an obstacle, but a rhythm, a challenge that demands both ingenuity and collaboration. You realize that even something as seemingly mundane as sail management is deeply intertwined with survival, a subtle dance where every movement matters and every decision has consequences for warmth, safety, and life itself. You wipe the icy spray from your face and notice how the crew rotates between wet and dry tasks, a subtle yet critical strategy for survival. Wet work, hauling frozen lines, clearing decks, or bailing water, is taxing and chilling, while dry tasks like mending sails or tending fire offer brief reprieve. Historians still argue whether these rotations were carefully planned or evolved instinctively over countless voyages. You slip on a damp patch of deck and feel the cold bite sharply through your layers, appreciating the logic behind structured alternation. It's about keeping circulation, energy, and morale just above critical levels. Some fringe accounts claim that sailors even intentionally soaked gloves to toughen their hands, a seemingly cruel training technique that supposedly made working with ice-covered ropes more bearable. You grimace imagining it, but understand the principle. Adaptation is often as much physical as psychological. Even the simplest daily actions, nodding, sweeping, moving barrels, become exercises in managing cold exposure and conserving energy. Boots and gloves are central to this system. Wet boots are removed or lined with straw to dry, while another sailor takes their place, and gloves alternate between wet work and semi-dry rotation. Fringe sources suggest some sailors hung mittens near a small fire, wrapped in wool to dry slowly, while others tucked gloves inside fur layers to preserve warmth. You watch a pair of sailors swap positions, noting the precise timing and gestures, a practiced ballet of survival, almost invisible to an untrained observer. Mental strategies reinforce the physical system. Sailors tell stories, sing quietly, or trade jokes during rotations, sustaining morale when the temperature drops below anything you'd call comfortable. Historians still debate whether humor genuinely prevents hypothermia-induced confusion, or if it simply maintains focus long enough to avoid mistakes. You listen to muffled laughter and realize that even small social rituals add a layer of warmth that clothing alone cannot provide. Finally, you see the elegance of alternating tasks. Crews balance exposure, energy output, and vigilance seamlessly. Wet and dry cycles prevent catastrophic frostbite, maintain functionality, and create predictable rhythms that reduce chaos. Every action, from swapping boots to sharing a brief sip of warm liquid, becomes part of a finely tuned system designed to combat one relentless adversary, the cold. You shiver, yet a strange satisfaction fills you. This choreography is not just survival, it's mastery over the harshest conditions the sea can deliver. You huddle near the center of the deck, shivering despite your layers, and notice how much mental warmth matters. Morale becomes as vital as clothing or fire. Singing shanties, telling stories, and sharing whispered jokes helps stave off the creeping despair of freezing nights. Historians still argue whether these practices measurably affected survival or were merely psychological comforts, but you can feel the difference. Laughter softens the sting of the wind and makes frostbite seem slightly less threatening. Some fringe accounts suggest sailors staged small pranks, like pretending a frozen line was cursed, or swapping soaked gloves while no one was looking. You grin at the thought. It sounds childish, but the humor lightens the constant tension. In the relentless cold, tiny bursts of amusement are lifelines. Even subtle smiles or whispered quips offer warmth that clothing alone cannot provide. Storytelling plays a similar role. Tales of past voyages, exaggerated heroics, or odd rituals like smearing animal fat to prevent skin cracking helped crew members bond and maintain focus. You notice a sailor animatedly recounting a mishap with a frozen rope, and nearby crew lean in, not just for entertainment, but for a shared sense of solidarity. Historians still debate whether these traditions were organized or spontaneous, but the effect is undeniable. Communal attention distracts from the numbing cold and strengthens resilience. Music adds another layer. Singing rhythmic shanties helps coordinate work while subtly generating heat through movement and vocal effort. Fringe sources claim some crews intentionally adapted melodies to be cheerier,
believing the higher mood literally wards off cold-induced lethargy. You hum quietly along, feeling a pulse of warmth spread from your chest to your fingers, a reminder that survival isn't only physical. Finally, you realize that mental warmth integrates with all survival tactics. Shared humor, ritualistic storytelling, and music act as glue, binding the crew into a functional organism. Laughter, song, and camaraderie become tools, subtly amplifying the effectiveness of clothing, fire, and rotation systems. You lean back against a timber, eyes half closed, feeling the gentle pulse of communal resilience, proof that even in the frozen vastness of the sea, the human spirit provides heat that no firewood alone could match.
You crouch on the slick deck as icy spray flies over the rail and notice that emergency ice drills are part of survival, not just convenience. Crews practiced clearing decks of ice, freeing frozen ropes, and scraping hoarfrost from essential surfaces. Historians still argue whether these drills were formalized or largely improvised, but the method is clear. Preparation prevents small problems from becoming life-threatening. You watch a sailor chip stubborn ice from a line while the wind tries to knock him off balance, appreciating how physical skill and timing are just as crucial as layering or fire. Fringe accounts describe crews using improvised tools, wooden paddles, carved hooks, or even sharpened bones to clear ice in hard-to-reach areas. It sounds primitive, yet it reflects the resourcefulness required when modern tools didn't exist. You bend down to chip at a patch yourself, fingers stiff, and marvel at the delicate balance between effort and exhaustion. One wrong move, and the cold punishes you instantly. Ice doesn't just threaten the hull, it forms on ropes, sails, and rigging, affecting maneuverability. Sailors learn to prioritize tasks, choosing which lines to free first to maintain control. Fringe stories suggest that some crews developed mnemonic chants or rhythmic songs while working, both to synchronize labor and allegedly to charm the ice away. You hum along quietly, realizing that even in desperation, human creativity finds expression in the harshest conditions. Coordination is everything. Crews move in choreographed rotations, ensuring that no one becomes dangerously cold while others struggle alone. Historians still debate whether smaller ships had the luxury of formal drills, or if only large fleets maintained structured emergency practices. You notice subtle hand signals, quick nods, and silent gestures, a language of survival developed under the pressure of freezing seas. Finally, you step back and see the bigger picture. Emergency ice drills combine skill, ingenuity, and shared effort into a survival strategy. It's not just about removing ice, it's about timing, communication, and minimizing exposure. Every strike of a chisel, every tug at a frozen line, every whispered instruction contributes to a finely tuned system where human ingenuity and cooperation confront one of the coldest adversaries imaginable, nature itself.
You glance around the deck and notice the presence of animals, small companions that double as both morale boosters and warmth sources. Cats slink between sailors' feet, dogs huddle in corners, and some ships even carried pigs whose body heat is surprisingly effective. Fringe accounts suggest that these animals were sometimes believed to carry protective qualities, offering luck against the cold and sea hazards. Historians still debate whether this practice was widespread or anecdotal, but the warmth, both physical and psychological, is undeniable. You pat a cat tucked into a sailor's coat, feeling a tiny surge of comfort against the icy wind. Animals weren't just cuddly. They served practical purposes. Cats kept vermin away, reducing food loss, while their presence indirectly prevented sailors from huddling too tightly and risking accidental injuries on slippery decks. Dogs provided early warnings of approaching storms or ice, and their shared body heat with humans created small, localized thermal hubs. You notice a sailor carefully wrapping a small dog in spare cloth,
a subtle choreography that blends care, superstition, and survival instinct. Fringe tales even describe rats used as therapeutic companions, believed to keep hands warm or spirits elevated. It sounds absurd, yet sailors swore by their calming effect during long nights exposed to relentless cold. You watch a tiny rodent scuttle along the edge of a crate, wondering if its presence offers warmth to its handler or simply a welcome distraction from misery. Humans, of course, integrate with these animals in ingenious ways. Sailors arrange themselves around animals during rest periods, sharing heat and creating microenvironments that stave off frostbite. Historians still argue whether these arrangements were ad hoc or guided by accumulated knowledge, but the logic is clear. Any additional body heat increases survival odds. You notice whispered instructions on positioning, minimizing wind exposure, and coordinating shifts between human and animal warmth, an intimate collaboration across species. Finally, you step back and feel the quiet reassurance animals provide. Beyond practical benefits, they foster companionship, calm, and a sense of continuity amidst the chaos. Even as the wind slices across the deck and icy spray soaks your layers, the warmth of shared bodies, human and animal, creates a small, vital haven. In this frozen expanse, survival is not only about skill, layers, or fire, it's about cooperation, empathy, and the unexpected ingenuity of relying on another living creature to make it through the night. You pull yourself toward the galley and notice how much of a sailor's life revolves around clothing maintenance. Wet garments freeze quickly, so mending, drying, and treating fabric is as crucial as navigating storms. Sailors stitched tears, patched holes, and applied animal fats or oils to repel water. Historians still debate whether ships carried enough spare materials for systematic clothing care, or if crews improvised entirely with whatever scraps they had. You tug at a soaked sleeve and realize that keeping fabric functional is a matter of life and limb as much as comfort. Fringe accounts suggest that some sailors even boiled garments in seawater infused with herbs, claiming it added durability or warmth. You wrinkle your nose at the thought, yet the logic is there. Treating clothes preserves insulation, which directly protects against frostbite. Small, repetitive acts, patching mittens, reinforcing boots, mending tunics, become essential rituals on frozen voyages. Drying techniques are equally inventive. Clothes are draped over heated containers, hung inside cabins, or tucked close to animals for gentle warmth. Fringe sources mention sailors rotating wet layers around the fire in carefully timed sequences, a system that seems almost ceremonial. You notice a sailor tugging at a glove over a tiny brazier, judging the heat carefully. Too close and it scorches, too far and it fails to dry. Even seemingly mundane tasks carry psychological weight. Carefully repairing your own garments gives a sense of control in an environment otherwise dominated by wind, ice, and waves. Historians still argue whether shipboard laundries existed or if this was purely an ad hoc process. But either way, it's clear that survival requires constant attention to the material basics of life. Finally, you notice the cumulative effect. A ship with well-maintained clothing has a functional, warmer crew, reducing frostbite, maintaining mobility, and keeping morale intact. Every stitch, every smear of grease, every carefully hung wet mitten contributes to a finely tuned system of survival. You step back and admire the quiet diligence of sailors managing their gear. It's a blend of craft, ritual, and necessity that underscores the extraordinary ingenuity of life at sea in freezing conditions.
You lean against the railing and notice the constant rotation keeping watch through the night. Nighttime vigilance is grueling, exposing sailors to the coldest hours while their shipmates rest in slightly warmer cabins or wind-sheltered areas. Historians still debate how frequent nocturnal shifts were, or whether smaller crews struggled to maintain continuous watch, but the reality is obvious. Alertness is survival. You shiver, adjusting layers, and realize that every glance at the horizon, every hand on the helm, is a silent negotiation with the cold.
cold. Fringe accounts describe sailors using simple tricks to stay awake, small bites of peppered meat, rhythmic humming, or tapping frozen fingers together to generate fleeting warmth. You try a subtle tap with your gloved hands and feel a temporary spark of circulation, a minor victory against the creeping numbness. Mental stimulation becomes as crucial as clothing or fire. A lapse in focus could result in disaster when ice, storms, or hidden shoals appear. Rotation isn't only physical, it's a carefully choreographed system. Sailors wake one another, pass brief instructions, and trade positions to ensure no single person succumbs to frostbite or exhaustion. Fringe sources even mention marking watch schedules with carved notches on beams, a low-tech but effective mnemonic to prevent mistakes. You glance at the timber, realizing the ingenuity required to maintain structure while the ship rocks violently. Exposure at night is compounded by fatigue. Every movement feels slower, every breath sharper, and you notice how tiny gestures, shifting a foot, adjusting a glove, tightening a scarf, accumulate into critical life-saving behaviors. Historians still argue about the balance between structured watch duty and instinctive adjustments, but the evidence of practical improvisation is everywhere. You watch a sailor brace himself against the railing, one hand on the wheel, eyes scanning the darkness, and sense the rhythm of survival, constant attention, intermittent rest, and the subtle support of a watchful crew. Finally, you feel a strange calm in the routine. Despite the cold, the constant vigilance and shared responsibility create a microcosm of control. Each sailor's endurance reinforces the others, producing both safety and warmth. Nighttime watch is grueling, but it is also a testament to human adaptability, resilience, and the understanding that in frozen seas, survival is as much about cooperation and attentiveness as it is about clothing or fire.
You clutch the railing as the ship pitches through icy waves, and suddenly your stomach churns. Seasickness worsened by the bitter cold. The combination of cold and nausea is brutal. Your body shivers uncontrollably, and every movement feels heavier than the last. Historians still debate how crews managed seasickness in freezing conditions, whether there were standardized remedies or simply trial-and-error approaches, but the struggle is unmistakable. You notice sailors clutching small horns of ale or nibbling dried ginger, hoping for relief while shivering against the wind. Fringe accounts suggest that ginger wasn't just a flavoring, but a subtle heat-inducing aid for the body, believed to improve circulation and stave off chills. You nibble a tiny sliver of dried root yourself and feel a faint warmth spread through your stomach, a small psychological boost as much as a physiological one. Alcohol plays a similar double-edged role. A small swig offers a warming sensation, but overindulgence reduces core temperature. Sailors had to balance comfort with survival, a fine line made more treacherous by rolling decks and whipping winds. Managing nausea is as much about positioning as ingestion. Leaning into the wind, adjusting posture, or holding a bracing line reduces discomfort while maintaining circulation. Fringe tales claim that some sailors even pressed warm stones against their stomachs or rubbed peppermint leaves for relief, methods that may seem eccentric, but in desperation, every trick counts. Historians still argue whether these were widespread practices or rare improvisations, but the ingenuity behind each attempt is clear. The cold amplifies seasickness in subtle ways. Shivering muscles and stiff joints reduce balance, and your stomach becomes sensitive to even minor movements. You see sailors coordinating brief rests, small rotations, or dividing responsibilities to allow afflicted crew to recover while keeping essential tasks covered. The mental aspect is equally crucial. Maintaining focus, humor, and social interaction prevents panic and ensures survival despite physical discomfort. Finally, you realize that seasickness, while debilitating, is integrated into the broader system of cold weather survival. Remedies, positioning, and rotations all combine to manage both nausea and exposure. Each small adjustment,
bit of ginger, shift in stance, careful sip of ale is part of a larger choreography that keeps the crew functional. Even in the most miserable moments, survival depends on subtle physical adaptations and human ingenuity, proving that enduring frozen seas isn't just about clothing or fire. It's about resilience of mind and body.
You trudge along the icy deck, realizing that weeks of exposure have a cumulative effect on both body and mind. Extended cold builds resilience, and sailors develop subtle adaptations. Circulation improves, layering strategies are refined, and mental toughness becomes second nature. Historians still debate whether these changes were actual physiological adaptations or simply the result of surviving through sheer stubbornness. You notice seasoned sailors moving with effortless efficiency, fingers that once froze easily now flexing with surprising dexterity, and you start to understand how repetition can harden endurance over time. Fringe accounts suggest that sailors' bodies even developed minor cold calluses, thickened skin and extremities from repeated frost exposure. It sounds almost mythical, yet the concept reinforces the blend of observation, ritual, and trial that dominated life at sea. You tap a finger against a rope and feel the faint numbness, appreciating how prior experience has made the cold slightly more bearable. Even small, repetitive motions during daily routines contribute to this gradual adaptation. Food and drink continue to play a role in cumulative cold management. Hot stews, spiced drinks, and occasional ale maintain energy and warmth over long stretches, while rotations between wet and dry work preserve functional stamina. Fringe tales claim that certain herbs added to meals helped prevent chilling or fatigue, likely more superstition than science, but the psychological comfort is clear. You notice sailors anticipating meals almost as much as shifts, a rhythm that structures life aboard a frozen vessel. Even mental adaptations are significant. Sailors grow attuned to the ship's rhythm, predict gusts, anticipate icy patches, and develop rituals to maintain morale. Historians still argue how structured these practices were, but the effect is undeniable. The crew functions like a single organism, combining learned experience, observation, and small superstitions into an effective survival system. You watch a group quietly laugh at an inside joke while hauling a frozen line, understanding that humor and rhythm help maintain focus over long, punishing voyages. Finally, you sense a strange intimacy with the cold itself. Weeks of exposure have created a rhythm, a dance with the elements, where each sailor knows their limits and compensates with layers, movement, and careful observation. Survival is no longer a constant struggle, but a managed endurance, a blend of body, mind, and communal experience that allows life to persist even in relentless freezing conditions. You realize that cumulative exposure shapes not just endurance, but identity, forging a crew tempered in.
You glance toward the horizon and notice the subtle signs of approaching storms. Anticipating weather is critical. A sudden blizzard or icy squall can undo all the careful preparation and threaten the crew's very survival. Historians still debate how much medieval sailors relied on observation versus superstition for predicting storms, but evidence shows that careful attention to cloud formations, wind shifts, and sea behavior was essential. You tighten your scarf and brace against a gust, realizing that forethought and vigilance can make the difference between a manageable night and catastrophe. Fringe accounts suggest some sailors carried charms, amulets, or carved talismans believed to protect the ship from storms and freezing winds. You chuckle at the thought, but even if symbolic, these practices offered psychological comfort, helping crew members maintain focus and morale when the cold and waves seemed overwhelming. The blend of practical observation and ritual underscores the multidimensional strategies required for survival. Preparation also extends to physical readiness. Sailors reinforce sails, adjust rigging, and ensure that extra layers and firewood are accessible before nightfall. Fringe sources claim that some ships even employed storm drills, where crew rehearsed emergency maneuvers in cold but controlled conditions. Historians still argue whether these drills were formalized or simply part of experiential knowledge.
Yet the logic is undeniable. Readiness reduces panic, preserves warmth, and enhances survival odds. Even food and water routines are adjusted in anticipation of storms. Hot meals are prioritized, and beverages with mild warming properties like spiced broths or small amounts of ale are consumed strategically to maintain core temperature. Fringe accounts suggest that some crews even preheated bedding near the fire to provide an immediate refuge during long shifts in stormy weather. You step carefully along the deck, noticing small bundles of straw or blankets positioned to aid anyone exposed to sudden cold gusts. A network of micro-warmth meticulously planned. Finally, you recognize the synergy of these preparations. Observation, ritual, rotation, nutrition, and clothing all converge to create a resilient system. Even when a storm hits, the crew can respond with practiced efficiency rather than panic. Survival is no longer about reacting to cold, wind, or ice. It's about orchestrating human ingenuity, experience, and communal effort to endure one of nature's harshest environments. You feel a quiet admiration for the precision, resilience, and creativity required to navigate frozen seas safely.
You finally lean back against the railing, exhausted yet alert, and notice how endurance at sea is as much a mental battle as a physical one. Over long voyages, sailors develop routines, rituals, and coping strategies that blend experience, superstition, and sheer stubbornness. Historians still argue whether this resilience was innate or learned, but the evidence is clear. Human ingenuity, communal coordination, and adaptability were as critical as clothing, fire, or diet. You watch the crew in quiet rotation, some tending fires, others hauling frozen lines, a few resting in micro-warmed nooks, and realize that every act, no matter how small, contributes to collective survival. Fringe tales describe sailors whispering blessings to the wind, applying herbal poultices to fingers, or adjusting layers according to lunar cycles. While some may seem absurd, they illustrate the interplay of practical knowledge, ritual, and belief. These rituals reinforced confidence and coordination, subtly warming both body and mind, and highlight the psychological sophistication required to endure relentless cold. You feel your own muscles relax slightly, appreciating the rhythm that comes from repetition and the subtle harmony of human collaboration in extreme conditions. Even the smallest gestures matter. A shared joke, a carefully distributed hot broth, or a hand extended to help a struggling crewmate becomes a life-saving intervention. You notice how seasoned sailors anticipate needs before words are spoken, adjusting positions, trading tasks, or offering warmth without prompting. Historians still debate how standardized these behaviors were, yet the cohesion of a well-practiced crew is undeniable. Every minor act contributes to a larger, resilient system designed to manage cold, fatigue, and danger simultaneously. As the night wears on, you observe the ship itself as a silent partner in survival. The hull's insulating design, layered clothing, improvised fires, rotating duties, and even animals on board all merge into a dynamic ecosystem of warmth and endurance. Fringe anecdotes about herbal remedies, protective charms, and warming rituals complement practical strategies, creating a complex web of adaptation. You step back and admire the orchestration. Every element, human or material, serves a purpose. Finally, you close your eyes briefly, feeling the subtle warmth of shared effort, ingenuity, and care. Weeks of exposure, countless small decisions, and communal support have forged a rhythm that allows life to persist even in the most brutal frozen conditions. The relentless cold is still out there, but inside this coordinated system of people, animals, and skill, survival is possible. You realize that what keeps sailors from freezing isn't just fire or clothing. It's a blend of creativity, ritual, collaboration, and human resilience. Now let the pace slow. You rest against the deck, feeling the gentle rocking of the ship beneath you, and notice how the cold outside seems distant, almost softened by the warmth of shared presence. Every breath, every small movement becomes a meditation in survival. You can feel the layers of clothing, the muffled heat from fires and animals, and the subtle warmth of camaraderie wrapping around you like a soft blanket. Outside, the sea continues its relentless rhythm, waves whispering against the hull. But inside, there is stillness and safety. Your body unwinds gradually. Muscles release tension, fingers regain circulation, and even your face seems less pinched by the cold. You recall the stories of layering, rotating duties, small meals, and warming rituals, each a tiny thread in a tapestry of endurance. Together, they create a cocoon of resilience. Fringe tales of herbs, charms, or cats huddling in corners mingle with practical strategies, blending imagination with hard-earned knowledge. This mixture is comforting, almost magical, reminding you that ingenuity and care can shape the harshest environment. Even as your eyes grow heavy, the rhythm of the ship, the gentle murmur of water, and the shared breathing of your crew create a lullaby. You feel a soft pulse of warmth in your chest, a reminder that human ingenuity, collaboration, and ritual offer comfort even in frozen isolation. Allow yourself to sink deeper into this calm, breathing slowly, letting each wave, each creak of timber, each whisper of wind become part of the soft, enduring melody around you. Soon, sleep takes you lightly, carrying the memory of resourcefulness, endurance, and quiet triumph against the cold. The ship rocks gently, the frost glitters faintly in the moonlight, and you drift, secure in the knowledge that warmth, physical, mental, and communal, has preserved life against the relentless icy sea.